At our kitchen table, my wife handed me a chastity cage and said, "You will wear it all the time, and I will have the only key while my lover comes over tonight." I pulled out my briefcase and smiled. What Tammy didn't know was that her submissive husband was actually Kevin Hoffman, senior financial analyst with a $134,000 salary, professional connections she couldn't imagine, and 3 months of carefully documented evidence of her planned betrayal. The confidence in Tammy's voice as she delivered her ultimatum was intoxicating. After 20 years of marriage, she still saw me as the accommodating husband who never argued, who did household chores without complaint, who gave her everything she wanted. What she didn't realize was that for the past 12 weeks I'd been systematically building the most comprehensive divorce case her internet advisor, Mistress B, could never have anticipated. "Are you finished?" I asked calmly, examining the small chastity device she'd placed before me. The size alone told me everything about how little she understood about my actual anatomy or my strategic capabilities. "Yes, I know this will be a big change, but you'll adjust and do as you're told," Tammy replied, though I could see nervousness creeping into her expression. She'd expected tears, begging, or immediate submission. Instead, she was getting the same analytical calm I used when dismantling fraudulent financial schemes for major corporations. "I do want to warn you that if you don't agree, there will be consequences," she continued, her voice getting shakier. "If I don't comply, you'll divorce me and I'll live in a shoebox, right?" I asked, unable to suppress a chuckle. The fear that flashed across her face was beautiful. She hadn't expected me to know about her divorce threats, her conversations with Mistress B, or her elaborate plan to financially destroy me while she lived it up with her bull Stephen Rose. I pulled out my phone and sent a pre-planned email to Stephen's wife, then called our daughter Robin. "Yeah, honey, she laid the law down to me. You won't believe it, but she just gave me a chastity cage to wear." "Put the phone down," Tammy snapped, trying to regain control. "Who the hell were you talking to?" I looked at her with what she would later describe to her lawyer as terrifying calm and said, "Never interrupt me when I'm talking to my daughter." The authority in my voice made her step back. This wasn't the submissive husband she thought she'd been training. "Good, I have your attention. Let's recap what you just proposed. You want me to wear this device while your lover comes to our house. I'm supposed to service both of you, continue doing household chores, and if I refuse, you'll divorce me and take everything I've worked for. Is that about right?" Tammy nodded, some confidence returning, as she thought things were proceeding according to plan. I opened my briefcase and slid a thick folder across the table. "Tammy, pull out your phone and call Stephen." "What? Who is Stephen?" But I could see the recognition dawning in her eyes as I grabbed her phone and dialed Stephen Rose from her contacts, putting him on speaker. "Hey baby, how did the wimp take it? Is he ready?" Stephen's voice filled our kitchen, sealing both their fates. "Sorry, Stephen, but this isn't baby. This is the wimp. I need to ask you a few questions. When you started sleeping with my wife, did you tell her you were married with 2 small children? Did you tell your wife you were spending tonight with my married girlfriend?" The silence on the line was deafening. "Don't worry, I took care of that for you. I'm sure she'll take the photos you sent Tammy very well. I know I'll be using them in my divorce." "You son of a bitch, I'll kill you!" Stephen shouted. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out my legally registered .45 caliber handgun. Tammy shrieked when she saw it. "Stephen, are you familiar with firearms? That sound you just heard was a round being chambered. I've recently wondered what would happen if you showed up at my door. We could find out together." After several moments of silence, I looked at Tammy, who was starting to panic. Damn, I think he hung up. I didn't even get to tell him I forwarded his emails to his employer. Did you know they have strict policies about employees sleeping with clients? But the real revelation was yet to come. What Tammy didn't know was that our daughter Robin had discovered her mother's scheme during Christmas break when she'd used Tammy's old computer. Robin had found folders full of submissive videos and articles on how to manipulate your husband into submission. More importantly, she'd helped me access Tammy's current computer using the password sheet Tammy thought she'd cleverly hidden under her desk. For 3 months, I'd been reading every email between Tammy and Mistress B, documenting her systematic plan to turn me into a financial slave while she enjoyed her affair with Stephen Rose. The emails were explicit about their intentions: drain my resources, humiliate me publicly, and keep me trapped as their personal servant. What they hadn't counted on was that I wasn't just any husband. I was Kevin Hoffman, senior financial analyst at Hartford Investment Group with 15 years of experience in forensic accounting and asset protection. I earned $134,000 annually, maintained our investment portfolio worth $1.2 million, and had professional relationships with some of Chicago's most aggressive divorce attorneys. While Tammy thought she was cleverly manipulating her submissive husband, I'd been consulting with Jackie Stone, the most ruthless divorce lawyer in the city. Jackie specialized in high-asset divorces involving adultery and financial abuse. She'd been fascinated by the evidence I'd gathered. "Kevin, most men come to me after they've been cleaned out," Jackie had told me during our first meeting. "You're building a case while you still have all the leverage. Your wife has made every possible mistake." The folder I'd placed on our kitchen table contained copies of everything. Tammy's email correspondence with Mistress B discussing how to break me financially. Stephen's emails describing his excitement about humiliating me. Bank records showing unauthorized transfers Tammy had made to accounts she thought I didn't know about. Most damaging of all, the explicit photos Stephen had taken during their encounters, which he'd foolishly emailed to Tammy through accounts I'd been monitoring. "What is this?" Tammy asked, opening the folder with shaking hands. "It's a petition for divorce. My lawyer, a woman who actually went to law school, wanted me to tell you that you should never take legal advice from internet strangers," I replied calmly. As Tammy read through the documentation, her face went from confused to horrified. Jackie had structured the divorce petition to maximize Tammy's financial exposure while protecting every asset I'd built over 2 decades. "First, you're not taking everything from me. We live in an equitable distribution state, but adultery affects the calculation. Second, did you tell your internet advisor that you own a successful business?" Tammy's marketing consulting firm was valued at nearly $800,000, with significant liquid assets that I'd helped her build through my financial planning expertise. Jackie was demanding 60% of the business value, $480,000, based on Tammy's adultery and financial misconduct. "But you know my company doesn't have that kind of cash," Tammy stammered. "Then you might have to sell your business to pay your debt to me," I replied. "Second thing, I'm not asking for alimony. Lucky for you, your reported income equals mine. Of course, that's calculated using what you actually receive from your company, including benefits, car allowances, and business trips. Shame you'll have to liquidate everything to meet your obligations." The beauty of my strategy was in the details Jackie had crafted. While Tammy had been planning to humiliate me, I'd been systematically protecting our assets. The house was nearly paid off, but I'd taken a strategic home equity loan, placing $200,000 in a trust for Robin's graduate school expenses, money that would be protected from any divorce settlement. "You planned this," Tammy accused, tears streaming down her face. "No, let me stop you there. You planned this. I'm just reacting to your plans. How's your plan working so far?" The most satisfying part was watching Tammy realize how completely she'd underestimated me. For months, she'd been following Mistress B's advice to test my submission by being more demanding, cutting off physical intimacy, and criticizing everything I did. She thought my compliance meant I was broken. Instead, I'd been documenting every demeaning act, every unreasonable demand, every piece of evidence that would demonstrate her systematic emotional abuse in court. Robin had been my willing accomplice, recording conversations and helping gather additional evidence when she was home from college. "I've known about your little plan for 3 months, I continued. "It just proves my point that you mistake kindness for weakness. I'll fix that for you. I will no longer be kind to you. I will treat you exactly as you've treated me." The phone started ringing, Stephen's wife, having received the emails I'd forwarded. Then my own phone buzzed with updates from the private investigator I'd hired to document Stephen's pattern of workplace affairs. It turned out Tammy wasn't his first victim, just his most recent. When Stephen showed up at our door an hour later, pounding and threatening to kill me, I was ready. The 911 call was already connected, recording his threats. The loaded firearm was legally registered and properly stored. When police arrived, they found Stephen trying to break down our door while screaming death threats that were being recorded in real time. The criminal charges against Stephen were immediate: terroristic threatening, attempted breaking and entering, and violation of workplace conduct policies that would cost him his job. His wife had already filed for divorce using the evidence I'd provided, and his employer fired him within 48 hours of receiving copies of his inappropriate relationship with a client. But the real masterstroke was the financial investigation Jackie launched into Tammy's business practices. It turned out that Tammy had been using company resources to fund her affair. Business trips that were actually romantic getaways, client dinners that were dates with Steven, even company credit cards used for hotel rooms during their encounters. Tammy, you valued your company at $800,000 on your loan application last year, I said, producing the bank documents. You signed under penalty of perjury that this valuation was accurate. If you're now claiming the company is worth less, that's either perjury or fraud. Either way, it's a felony. The color drained from her face as she realized the scope of her legal exposure. Not only was she losing half her business in the divorce, but she faced potential criminal charges for the financial misconduct Jackie's investigation had uncovered. Over the following weeks, Tammy's perfectly planned seduction scheme collapsed spectacularly. Steven faced criminal charges and lost his job. His wife took him for everything in their divorce, using the evidence I'd provided. Tammy's business partners, learning about her misuse of company resources, forced her out of the firm she'd built over 15 years. The preliminary divorce hearing was a prosecutor's dream. Jackie presented a comprehensive case showing systematic financial abuse, adultery, with documented evidence, and business fraud that had cost Tammy her professional reputation. The judge awarded me temporary exclusive use of our house, 70% of our joint assets, and legal fees that would bankrupt Tammy's remaining resources. Your Honor, I testified, I'm a financial analyst with 20 years of experience in asset protection and fraud investigation. I document everything professionally. This isn't marital discord. This is systematic financial abuse by someone who fundamentally misunderstood who they were dealing with. The most devastating evidence was Tammy's own emails with Mistress B, where she'd written, "He's so submissive. I could probably get him to pay for Steven's hotel rooms if I demanded it properly. The key is making him think he deserves the humiliation." 3 months after that evening in our kitchen, the final divorce settlement was signed. Tammy received $180,000 from the sale of her business. After paying me $420,000 for my share and covering legal fees that exceeded $80,000. She moved in with her parents, took a job as a marketing assistant, making $35,000 annually, and faced years of debt payments from the financial obligations Jackie had structured into our settlement. Steven served 6 months in county jail for the terroristic threatening charges, lost his house in his own divorce, and now works retail while paying child support to his ex-wife. His attempts to find work in sales have been unsuccessful due to his criminal record and the reputation he earned in our industry. The most satisfying outcome was Robin's reaction. "Dad, I always knew Mom underestimated you, but watching you systematically dismantle her entire scheme was like watching a masterclass in strategic planning. You didn't just win, you taught her that actions have consequences." I kept the chastity cage Tammy had given me as a reminder mounted in my home office, right next to the plaque recognizing my promotion to Director of Financial Investigations at Hartford Investment Group. Turns out, successfully prosecuting my own wife's financial fraud scheme had enhanced my professional reputation considerably. A year later, I received a letter from Tammy's attorney requesting a reduction in her financial obligations. She was struggling to make the monthly payments while living with her parents and working her entry-level job. Jackie's response was swift and brutal. "Your former client should have considered these consequences before attempting to financially and emotionally destroy her husband. The settlement stands as agreed." The final irony wasn't lost on me. Tammy had spent months planning to lock me in a cage while she lived freely with her lover. Instead, she'd locked herself into a financial cage that would constrain her lifestyle for the next decade. The key to her freedom was the same thing she'd tried to take from me: financial independence and professional respect. Sometimes people mistake kindness for weakness. Tammy learned the difference the hard way. I wasn't weak, I was strategic. And the most dangerous opponent is someone you've consistently underestimated who's been documenting everything while you thought you were winning. The cage she'd wanted to put me in became the prison she built for herself. And unlike her planned humiliation of me, her consequences were permanent, public, and entirely self-inflicted. She'd wanted excitement and power. I gave her exactly what she deserved instead.